Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're journeying to a place that almost seems mythical in our modern, connected world. Imagine a highway network stretching nearly 19,000 miles, an asphalt ribbon connecting the icy expanse of Alaska to the windswept tip of Argentina. This is the Pan-American Highway, a monumental feat of engineering and a symbol of hemispheric unity. But right in the middle, straddling the border of Panama and Colombia, there is a break. A 66-mile gap of sprawling rainforests, steep mountains, and vast swamps that no road has ever conquered. This is the Darien Gap. For centuries, it was a legendary, almost impenetrable wilderness, a land of myth and resilient indigenous communities. But in recent years, the Darien Gap has taken on a new, tragic identity. It has become one of the world's most active and dangerous migration corridors, a desperate artery for hundreds of thousands of people fleeing poverty, violence, and turmoil in a heart-wrenching search for a better life. To understand why this gap exists and why it's so formidable, we have to look at a history etched in ambition and failure. The Darien has always been a place that breaks the wills of outsiders. It was first settled over 10,000 years ago, and by the time Europeans arrived, it was home to the ancestors of the Guna, Wuna, and Embera peoples. The first European settlement on the American mainland was founded here in 1510, Santa Maria la Antigua del Darien. It was established by the Spanish conquistador Vasco Núñez de Balboa and served as a jungle training school for his forces, a launching point for expeditions deep into the interior in search of gold. It was from here, in 1513, that Balboa, guided by local indigenous people, led a grueling expedition across the mountains and jungles to become the first European to see the Pacific Ocean from the Americas, which he named the South Sea. This discovery cemented the strategic importance of the Isthmus of Panama, but it also began a brutal era of conquest. The Spanish met fierce resistance. They used the term Indios Barbaros to describe anyone who resisted colonization. The Cueva people, one of the main groups in the region, were tragically driven to extinction by a combination of violence, European diseases, and conflict. Yet, the indigenous peoples of the Darien were remarkably successful in resisting Spanish control for long periods, even forming alliances with English and French pirates who used the jungle as a haven. Perhaps the most infamous chapter in the Darien's history is the ill-fated Darien scheme of the late 1690s. This was the brainchild of Scottish financier William Paterson, a founder of the Bank of England. His grand vision was a Scottish colony, New Caledonia, on the Isthmus of Panama. The goal was to create an overland trade route between the Atlantic and Pacific, a venture he believed would make Scotland a global economic superpower. In 1698, about 200 hopeful settlers set sail from Scotland. The company financing the venture had raised a sum equivalent to roughly 1/5 of the entire wealth of Scotland. It was a massive national gamble, and it turned into an unmitigated nightmare. The settlers were completely unprepared for the harsh tropical environment. Their European crops wouldn't grow, and their trade goods were of no interest to the local tribes. Diseases like malaria and dysentery ran rampant, and the death toll soared. To make matters worse, England, wary of antagonizing Spain, which claimed the territory, forbade its American colonies from trading with or helping the Scots. A second expedition arrived in 1699, unaware of how bad things were, only to be blockaded by the Spanish. By 1700, the colony was abandoned. Out of 500 settlers in total, only a handful ever made it back to Scotland. The Darien scheme was a catastrophic failure that bankrupted the Scottish economy and was a significant factor in pushing Scotland towards the Act of Union with England in 1707. The idea of a land route didn't die, however. In 1937, the Convention on the Pan-American Highway was signed, committing nations to the construction of a road from Alaska to Patagonia. Over the next few decades, the highway became a reality, with that one glaring exception, the Darien Gap. A major push to finally build the Darien Highway happened in the 1970s, with significant funding from the United States. But it was ultimately halted. Environmentalists protested, warning it would destroy one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet. Public health officials raised alarms about the potential for foot and mouth disease to spread from South American livestock to North America. And the indigenous communities of the Darien consistently protested the construction, fearing the destruction of their ancestral lands and way of life. So the gap remained. And in its isolation, a lawless, ungoverned space was created. A vacuum that would eventually be filled by criminal organizations and a desperate stream of humanity. For decades, crossing the Darien was a feat undertaken by only a few thousand people a year. But in recent years, the gap has transformed into a major migration superhighway. The numbers are almost difficult to comprehend. In 2021, over 133,000 people made the trek. In 2022, that nearly doubled to almost 250,000. And in 2023, a record-shattering 520,000 migrants crossed the Darien. To put that in perspective, that single-year number is more than 40 times the annual average between 2010 and 2020. Who are these hundreds of thousands of people? The demographics have shifted dramatically. A few years ago, the route was primarily used by Cubans and Haitians. Following the devastating 2010 earthquake in Haiti, tens of thousands of Haitians relocated to Brazil and Chile. But after facing economic hardship and discrimination, many began the long journey north. Today, Venezuelans make up the largest group by far, fleeing the complete economic collapse, political repression, and deep humanitarian crisis in their country. In 2023, Venezuelans, along with Ecuadorians escaping a surge in gang violence and political instability, and Haitians, accounted for about 84% of all migrants. But the story is now truly global. The Darien Gap has become a key transit point for a significant number of extracontinental migrants from Asia and Africa. Since 2015, Panama has registered over 100,000 migrants from at least 60 different African and Asian countries. In 2023, the most common extracontinental nationalities were Chinese, Indian, and Afghan. The number of Chinese migrants in particular has skyrocketed. Fleeing China's strict COVID lockdowns, increasingly repressive government, and a faltering economy, many fly to Ecuador, which conveniently does not require a visa for Chinese nationals. From there, they begin their perilous overland journey to the Darien. It's a surreal reality. A remote jungle in Central America has become a crossroads for people from as far as Angola, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, all sharing a single dangerous path north. This journey is a life-threatening ordeal, a gauntlet of natural and human-made dangers that pushes people to their absolute limits. The trek can take anywhere from 3 to 10 days, sometimes more, and it is a waking nightmare. The natural environment itself is a formidable adversary. The Darien is one of the wettest regions on the entire planet. Frequent heavy rainfall triggers deadly landslides and flash floods that can wash people away without warning. The terrain is a punishing, endless cycle of climbing steep, muddy mountains that can reach over 6,000 feet and then descending into vast, sucking swamps. Temperatures often soar above 95 degrees Fahrenheit with crushing humidity, leading to severe dehydration. The jungle is also home to venomous snakes, crocodiles, and disease-carrying insects. As terrifying as the environment is, the human dangers are often worse. The complete absence of state authority has created a breeding ground for criminal syndicates, most notably Colombia's Gulf Clan, a powerful drug cartel and neo-paramilitary group. These groups control the smuggling routes as a lucrative business. They extort migrants for large sums of money, charging them to act as guides or for protection. These guides often rob, assault, or simply abandon their groups in the middle of the jungle. Robbery and kidnapping are rampant. Most horrifically, sexual assault is used as a tool of terror and control. The organization Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, treated 676 victims of sexual assault in the Darien in 2023 alone. They emphasize this is only the tip of the iceberg, as most cases go unreported due to fear and stigma. Survivors paint a picture of a lawless land, where the most vulnerable are preyed upon with absolute impunity. The exact number of people who have died in the Darien Gap is unknown, as many deaths go unrecorded, their bodies left behind. Between 2014 and 2021, at least 253 migrants were reported dead or missing. Panamanian authorities found 124 bodies between January 2021 and April 2023. Drowning in the fast-flowing rivers is a leading cause of death, but many also succumb to disease, exposure, and violence. The jungle is littered with the silent graves of those who didn't make it. Children are among the most vulnerable. UNICEF reports that 1 in 5 of the migrants crossing the Darien is a child. In the first half of 2023, half of the children who made the crossing were under the age of 5. These small children are exposed to the same dangers as adults, and many who survive arrive in Panama malnourished, dehydrated, and deeply traumatized. This massive, unrelenting flow of people is also inflicting a heavy toll on one of the most biodiverse rainforests in the world. The Darien National Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the largest protected area in Central America. It's considered the most important natural lung in the Western Hemisphere after the Amazon. Now, it's under severe threat. The environmental damage is multifaceted. Migrants leave behind an enormous amount of waste. It is estimated that each person leaves behind approximately 9 kilograms, or about 20 pounds, of solid waste. With over 500,000 migrants in 2023, this equates to millions of pounds of trash, plastic bottles, food containers, clothing, batteries, and human waste left in the jungle. This garbage pollutes the rivers and soil, contaminating the drinking water for the indigenous communities and harming the wildlife. There are reports of up to 300,000 tons of garbage accumulating near the park's border. The sheer number of people traversing the jungle also leads to deforestation. While large-scale clear-cutting isn't yet visible from satellites, the cumulative impact of hundreds of thousands of people compacting the soil, cutting undergrowth to widen trails, and hunting wildlife for food is undeniable. For the impoverished and historically neglected indigenous communities living on the edges of the gap, such as in the towns of Villa Caleta and Bajo Chiquito, the surge in migration has been a double-edged sword. The influx of hundreds of thousands of people needing services created a booming, albeit informal, economy. Many residents abandoned their traditional, sustainable agricultural practices to work in the migrant trade. They provide boat transportation, food, water, and lodging, earning significantly more money than they ever could from farming. This new income brought unprecedented wealth to some, allowing them to build new homes and install electricity. However, this newfound prosperity is incredibly precarious and comes at a steep cost. The complete dependence on the migrant economy has made these communities vulnerable. With recent government crackdowns, the number of crossings has dropped, and the local economy has crashed, leaving many struggling. The focus on the migrant trade is also eroding traditional culture and knowledge, while the pollution of their rivers, the source of their life, is causing illness and forcing a reliance on processed foods. The escalating crisis has prompted a complex and often contradictory web of responses. The governments of Panama, Colombia, and the United States are the key players, and their policies have recently shifted towards stricter enforcement and deterrence. In July 2024, the U.S. and Panama signed an agreement to curb the flow of migrants. Under this deal, the U.S. will provide funding for Panama to repatriate migrants who enter the country illegally. Panama's new president, José Raúl Mulino, has vowed to close the Darien Gap, citing the humanitarian and environmental crisis. In August 2024, Panama began deporting Colombian migrants with alleged criminal records under this new agreement. Colombia, for its part, has been criticized for not doing more to dismantle the criminal networks profiting from the trade, though its government has called for meetings with Panama and the U.S. to address the humanitarian situation. These stricter policies are heavily criticized by humanitarian organizations. They argue that deterrence does little to stop people who are fleeing for their lives. Instead, it makes their journey even more risky and pushes them further into the hands of dangerous criminal groups. In the face of this, organizations like Doctors Without Borders, the International Organization for Migration, and the Red Cross have stepped in to provide life-saving assistance. They operate in reception centers on the Panama side, providing medical care, food, water, and psychological support to migrants who stumble out of the jungle. Their work is vital, but it's also precarious. In a shocking move in March 2024, the Panamanian government suspended the work of Doctors Without Borders in the Darien, accusing the organization of encouraging illegal migration by providing information to migrants. This move highlights the growing tension between humanitarian imperatives and government policies of deterrence. The Darien Gap, a land of breathtaking beauty and terrifying danger, has become a microcosm of the complex and brutal realities of 21st century migration. It is a place where the desperation of those fleeing violence intersects with the cold calculus of international politics, where the resilience of the human spirit is tested against nature's harshest forces, and where pristine wilderness is being scarred by the footsteps of a desperate humanity. The current approach of enforcement has proven to be both ineffective and inhumane. A more comprehensive approach is urgently needed, one that addresses the root causes of migration, expands legal pathways for asylum, and provides protection for those forced to make this journey. The future of the Darien Gap hangs in the balance. It can continue to be a symbol of a broken international system, a place of suffering and degradation. Or it can be a catalyst for a new approach, one that recognizes our shared responsibility to protect the vulnerable and manage migration with safety, order, and dignity. The choice we make will not only determine the fate of hundreds of thousands of people, but will also be a testament to our own humanity.